The world of visual novels is vast, with all kinds of stories to be told, from dark fantasies to stories of the horrors of war, tales of love and heartbreak, extremely detailed and thought-out mysteries, and plenty of others. It's a genre that I hold near and dear to my heart as someone who's been playing these games since middle school. Despite its small community, I feel like there are still many titles that are severely looked. We all know games like Muv-Luv, Tsubahime, Fate Stay Night, Umineko, and Rants, but there are plenty more that are hidden beneath the surface. So here are 10 visual novels that I recommend. None of these are that obscure, but I see them talked about less than some other titles nowadays. Or maybe it's just the circles I'm in, I don't know. Also, all of these are translated, although quality can vary. I'd like to make one a fun translated visual novel sometime, but currently I don't really think I've played enough variety of them to make a full list. Cross Channel is one of the classics of the genre, and one that defined it as well, and along with that, it's a game that I hold very close to my heart. It follows the broadcasting club Gunjo Academy, which is a school made to isolate students deemed unfit for society, that after returning from a failed summer vacation to a world devoid of any other humans. It's one of the most meaningful and deep stories I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing, exploring the fragility of human bonds, and also how trauma forms us as people. It's odd because it used to be one of the most popular visual novels, but I don't really see it talked about much anymore, although its less than stellar official translation might have something to do with it. The two fan translations aren't the best either, but I'd go with the Amaterasu one since it's a bit better. I feel like the raw human pathos is able to be seen through regardless of quality, however, making one of the most enjoyable and unforgettable experiences you'll have in your life. To my knowledge, Ever 17 was basically the first visual novel to gain any sort of big following in the West. It's an amazing and legendary mystery game that holds up surprisingly well. The story is about 7 individuals who are trapped in an undersea amusement park called Lemieux. With limited time left to survive, it's up to them to solve this mystery and what's going on. It has one of the greatest twists I've ever seen in a work of fiction. That's absolutely mind-melting in how unpredictable but amazing it is. Funnily enough, a lot of people who worked on Ever 17 went to work on other famous visual novels, just as the main writer, Uchikoshi Kotaro, who went on to write 999, and the composer, Takeshi Abo, going on to compose the music in the Science Adventure series. So if you're a fan of those series, this is definitely a work to check out. It's criminally overlooked these days, and that tends to bother me to no end. Of all the games I'm talking about today, this is easily my favorite. When it comes to influential visual novels, a few come to mind. Rants 3, Dokusei, Two Heart, Canon, Kiminozo, Fate Stay Night, Muv-Luv Alternative, etc. However, there's one game that practically created the idea of how modern visual novels are structured. It's everyone's favorite incest simulator, Yuno! Joking aside, Yuno should be required reading for any visual novel fan, as its influence is still felt to this day. Basically, any sci-fi visual novel, from the previously mentioned Ever 17 to Steins take influence from Yuno, basically creating the idea of the multiple route mystery, where you play through each path in order to learn more of the story. A lot of times genre-defining titles don't hold up as well, since there are titles that have come later inspired by it that take those elements and expand upon them, but Yuno feels just as masterful from a modern perspective. That being said, I'd recommend that you stay away from the 2017 remake, unless the only way you can play visual novels is on Switch or PS4, in which case, get a PC, man, you're missing out on a lot. The art in the remake is not necessarily bad on its own. In fact, I do quite like the illustrator Nagi Ryo, but it can't compare to the feel of the original, with the original's beautiful, detailed pixel art that pushed the 16-bit PC-98 to its absolute limits. Not to mention, Yuno also has the greatest soundtrack ever. Seriously, I listen to it basically every single day when writing, drawing, working, basically anything. It's amazing. If you're not going to play the game, at least listen to the soundtrack because it's just a work of art. Most are familiar with Akabe Soft due to the ever-popular G-senjou no Maou, but if I'm honest, I actually personally prefer Sharin no Kuni. It's set in a dystopian world where those who commit crimes are given obligations rather than being sent to jail. Our main character, Morita Kenichi, is in the last phase of becoming a special high-class individual, those who are given the job of observing and helping those obligations. Despite the system seeming like a good idea on paper, there are many issues with it that make it hard for those who have them to rehabilitate. Sharin no Kuni poses many questions about criminals and the punishments given to them, but despite seeming like it would be about a rebel group going against an oppressive government, it's more about the emotions and backstories of those in the small town this work takes place in, which in my opinion makes it more grounded, interesting, and meaningful. Seriously, Natsumi is one of the greatest heroines of any visual novel ever. Toka's scenario made me really reconsider my relationship with my parents, and Sachi's made me get a job. I can't recommend this enough, especially since it's relatively short, and it's just really great. Honestly, I feel as if Yume Kusuri is one of those games that you tend to connect more with if you've experienced the topics that it tackles. It's a relatively simple visual novel, focusing on our main character, Kyoukai, as he helps out girls who are suffering from problems that many other teens have, namely bullying, drugs, and interpersonal relationships. I've heard it being described as so realistic that it's unrealistic, and that's honestly a perfect description. When recording footage of this game, I was reminded of my times being intensely bullied in high school, the fear of my future when graduating, and well, I've never had any experiences with drugs, but I definitely know how it feels having an addiction that actively harms you. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, share this video with all your friends, and donate to my Patreon. I don't know if this game will connect with anyone, but it certainly did with me, especially when I first played it. Also, although a lot of guides tell you to play Aiyoku's route first, for your own sake, don't. It's so brutal that you won't want to play another route after you finish it. Honestly, I feel as if Yume Kusuri is one of those games that you tend to connect more with if you've experienced the topics that it tackles. It's a relatively simple visual novel, focusing on our main character, Kyoukai, as he helps out girls who are suffering from problems that many other teens have, namely bullying, drugs, and interpersonal relationships. I've heard it being described as so realistic that it's unrealistic, and that's honestly a perfect description. When recording footage of this game, I was reminded of my times being intensely bullied in high school, the fear of my future when graduating, and well, I've never had any experiences with drugs, but I definitely know how it feels having an addiction that actively harms you. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, share this video with all your friends, and donate to my Patreon. I don't know if this game will connect with anyone, but it certainly did with me, especially when I first played it. Also, although a lot of guides tell you to play Aiyoku's route first, for your own sake, don't. It's so brutal that you won't want to play another route after you finish it. Leaf is one of the pioneers of the genre, being the ones who even created the term visual novel. It's odd though, because I feel like a lot of their games are still stuck in Japanese, such as the original Two Heart and White album. One that isn't is Tears to Tiara. This game kind of feels like the Rant series and Kiseki performed a fusion dance, and I love it. After the revival of the Demon King Aran, he sets out on a quest with his newfound harem, and also a few others, to take down an oppressive government. It's fairly simple and nothing too mind-blowing, but the scene-to-scene interactions between characters and the broad strokes of the story are masterful in my opinion, not to mention the gameplay, which is super fun and addictive. I'm a sucker for RPG visual novel hybrids as seen by my love for Alisoft, and this is no exception. The art is very, scrunkly, which I think keeps a lot of people from checking it out, but I think it still has its charm. Kikokugai should feel familiar to any seasoned visual novel fan, as it's very similar to Sayano Uta. It was written, composed, and drawn by the same people. It's also very short, follows the main character and a lolly, who are in a relationship that isn't all too socially acceptable, and has a really open ending. I'm not gonna beat around the bush, Kikokugai is a masterpiece. It moves at a great pace, the characters are interesting, Ruli is my wife, the actions are awesome, and it packs so much emotion into such a small title. I can't recommend it enough, especially as a starter visual novel, since, like I said, it's incredibly short. I got through it in about 3 hours, though granted I tend to be a bit of a fast reader. There's a remake also, which has voice acting and redone art, this time done by Namitaku Attack, who is the artist for titles such as Muramasa. But I personally prefer the old art due to the pre-rendered backgrounds and scrunkly character designs, which give a sense of grime that's hard to replicate. Regardless, this is one title I think you shouldn't miss out on. Eve First Air is another legendary PC-98 title and is frequently cited as one of the best visual novels of all time. It held the #1 spot on Arrow Gamescape for some time, and while I do think rankings aren't always the best way to judge quality, this definitely does deserve its fame. It's also one of those games I really recommend you play if you're a fan of older visual novels. Fans of newer ones might be put off since it suffers quite a bit from the old adventure game type of gameplay. Special mention goes to the hacking section, which I spent an entire day trying to figure out even with a guide. But putting that aside, the scenario is absolutely fantastic. You play as two main characters in this game, which is something that was huge at the time. Magi Kojiro, who is tasked with solving the disappearance of a mysterious and very valuable item, and Hojo Marina, who is put in charge of protecting Mido Mayoko, the daughter of an important ambassador of the fictional country Eldia. The story is filled to the brim with twists and turns that I never saw coming, not to mention this awesome soundtrack, composed by the same guy as Yuno. This game is actually written by the same author as Yuno as well, Hiroyuki Kano. Despite its popularity in Japan, I rarely see it talked about in the West. I've only met like 2 other people who have played it, which is a shame. Frankly, I think this might be due to the translation, which, well, it's a very old translation, so expect a lot of inaccuracies. But if you can look through that, you'll find a genuinely amazing game that I really love. And I think you will too. Gore Screaming Show is fucking awesome. Easily one of the best visual novels I've played in a long time. It's the most recently translated of the games on here, since it came out only a few months ago, and it was well worth the years of waiting through various fan translation groups, picking it up and dropping it. It's about Kyoji, who returns to his childhood hometown, as he's reunited with his old friends, along with meeting a mysterious girl who seems to know him. Said girl, Yuka, is also in control of a mysterious monster named Gore Screaming Show, who goes around doing bad things to people, sometimes including murder. There's a lot that I can say about this title and how amazing it is, but it's one of those games where the less you know about it, the better it is. Seriously, go play it now. I command you to. Please. Hey, you didn't think I'd go without mentioning an Alisoft title on here, did you? Yes, our final entry is the legendary Toushin Toshi II. Although there is a 2 in the title, it's not really required to play through the first game beforehand since it's set in an alternative universe. But hey, the first one is short and chunkiest, so I'd recommend it. Regardless, Toushin Toshi II was a huge deal when it was released, as it's a crazy long game. I actually own it physically, and it comes on 11 floppy disks, which is kind of insane. Like Eve, it's definitely a game I think fans of older visual novels should play, as it feels a lot like a classic Zelda or Final Fantasy game in tone. It also has the bonus of having sex as well. It's a genuine love story between our main character Seed and the main heroine Hazuki, and while it could be considered somewhat generic to some, I think it well makes up for it in just how amazing the plot is. It's also incredibly dark, like, even by Alisoft standards, there's some stuff that even made me have to go back and say, whoa, that's a little crazy. But definitely recommend this title, it's awesome. So yeah, those are 10 fantastic visual novels that I recommend you give a look to. This is my first video in this more professional style, so any sorts of comments or suggestions are very much appreciated. Just please don't be too rough, I'm a little sensitive. If you would like to see me make more content like this, then please check out my Patreon link in the description. I'm still getting things figured out, but you can get access to my Discord server and bonus content by donating. You can also donate one time if that's what you prefer using Ko-fi. Of course, there's no pressure to do so, and just sharing, liking, commenting, and subscribing is enough. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye!